Okay. Maybe we'll get started. I'll start with introductions, and maybe a few people will come on in, and that's okay. So welcome everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. If we haven't met, my name is Paige Inglis. I use she, her pronouns. I am the National Advocacy Coordinator at the Canadian Federation of University Women. The national office is located in what is commonly referred to as Ottawa, and I would first like to recognize that our office is located on the unceded and ancestral territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin peoples, and I think it is integral to reconciliation and decolonization that we scrutinize and change our language and recognize its powerful impact. We at CFUW are so pleased to have our friends at Canadian Women for Women in Afghanistan here with us today to share about their work. The idea for this webinar is really for CFUW members to hear more about CW4WA, who is our international service project for this year. We also hope that this webinar can inspire individuals and clubs to fundraise and potentially give some ideas of how you can raise funds and also know a bit more about where those funds are going. We heard from CFUW members that they really wanted to focus their funding on the Darakht-e Danesh Library, or DDL. Sorry for my pronunciation. Parwani was trying to help me earlier. The library. And so we'll be focusing on that program for most of today. As you know, when the Taliban took over last year, women and girls faced severe repression and their ability to access education became quite limited. So we're going to hear about one of the programs that is really helping Afghans across, access education through digital learning. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers for this event. First, we'll be hearing from Sarah Keeler, CW4WA's Advocacy and Engagement Manager, who will be telling us a bit more about the organization and its programs. Second, we will hear from Parwani Abdul Rahim Ahmad, DDL Content Manager, who will take us through a bit of the DDL Live and its resources. And finally, we'll hear from Melissa Bottoms, CW4WA Fund Development Manager, who will talk to us about fundraising. And then we'll have a Q&A to all participants and final words from our VP International Relations, DuMoulin. And just some housekeeping for your questions. We are in webinar format, so please put your questions in the Q&A and we will address them at the end of the presentation. And we are recording this webinar, so we will have it accessible to you shortly. So now I'll pass it over to Sarah.
Okay, thank you so much, Paige. I'm just going to bring up my slides here to get us started. Can everyone see that? Yeah, okay, great. So first of all, I want to thank you so much for hosting this session today and for inviting us to share about our work. CFUW has been a long-standing and strong ally of our work. And for that, we're really grateful. And I think my colleague Melissa actually will be able to share some of the specific impacts that you have made actually to the work that we're doing. So that'll be exciting to hear as well. I suspect that probably many of you are somewhat familiar with our organization and the work we do, but I'll just give a very brief overview. For those who may not be. Our mission is Canadians taking action in partnership with Afghan women towards improving conditions of human rights, ending women's oppression, and providing opportunities for Afghan women to live their lives with dignity, certainty, and purpose. And we do this primarily by enabling and improving access to quality and inclusive education, because we believe that education has the power to transform entire societies. And so, yes, our work focuses on that. And we have 5 program areas, 3 of which are field programs that directly deliver those educational opportunities to Afghans. That is investing in basic education, community literacy and libraries, and technology for education, of which the DDL library is our, I would say, flagship project, and you'll be hearing a lot more about that. And then in Canada and increasingly internationally, we are involved in public engagement, working with concerned Canadians to promote the values and mission of our organization, as well as advocacy, working at the grassroots to support and mobilize Canadians who want to speak out, and in government relations as well. Just a little bit about a snapshot really of what we've managed to achieve as an organization before the fall of Kabul last year, in August of last year. We've trained more than 10,000 teachers. We've provided literacy classes for nearly 5,000 students, distributed nearly 300 library starter kits and 262 science lab kits, established 40 community libraries, 3,000 women have graduated from our life skills program. We've provided access for over 1,000 female students too, which you'll be able to see shortly, as well as supporting thousands of Canadians to take action and advocate, and having launched more recently 19 successful advocacy campaigns, which have reached both Government of Canada and the UN. And we've really been working very tirelessly to adapt our programs to meet growing needs as the situation for women and girls in terms of accessing education has become more and more dire, as well as to circumvent the restrictions that have been created by Taliban edicts. So in terms of how we're responding since the crisis of last year, in Afghanistan, some of what we're doing is delivering distance education so that girls can continue their education. Again, you'll hear a lot more about that. Distributing emergency aid, which combines basic necessities like food aid together with learning materials in our Learning Baskets program. And we've provided scholarships for women and girls. And this is just a little overview of how that's reaching. We're equipping teachers and many initiatives that are offering alternative education to students virtually in Afghanistan and beyond for displaced populations as well. Globally, we have supported evacuation efforts. We are ensuring access to safe and accurate information on refugee resettlement and special visa schemes. We continue to receive many, many requests for information of that kind every week. And our advocacy is mobilizing at the grassroots and through government relations work specifically around the areas of safe passage for vulnerable Afghans, as well as defending human rights inside Afghanistan, and specifically the human right to education. Paige mentioned that people were particularly interested in hearing testimonials. And I did want to touch a little bit on the vital importance of connecting women and girls to education at this time of humanitarian crisis. It's, I think, very easy for people to kind of think of education as a secondary need when we know that, that there are devastating scenarios unfolding as far as famine and economic crisis. But really what we hear from women and girls is that this is actually a lifeline for them. They're suffering from, severe levels of isolation, depression, and even suicidality. And sometimes this educational opportunity and even a link that happens virtually can come as a real lifeline for them. So we receive, this is a project that we work on providing internet access to girls and women so that they can access the DDL library and other learning resources. And we receive beautiful messages of thanks from girls, including these beautifully illustrated thank you notes. And I just wanted to actually share a bit at length one email that I received from a young girl who is 17 years old. She is in Afghanistan, and she reached out looking for some way to continue her learning. And when we shared the DD library link with her, she replied, "Thank you very much for the library link. This means so much when we still do not have the right to go to school and university. And every day we are facing new Taliban laws against all women and girls, all Afghans, but especially us girls. We have no hope for the future with this extremist group. But after you replied and shared the library, I hoped again that the world has not forgotten us yet, and that there is still hope for tomorrow and people who are worried about us. My heart is full." So really you see that, like, the vital importance. It's actually not exaggerating to say that it can be life-saving in these circumstances for girls and women. I know that we're here today to talk primarily about fundraising, and Melissa will be able to share a lot more about that with you, but just as a kind of an overview about some of the other areas where you can contribute to the work that we're doing. Definitely always, we invite you to participate in our advocacy campaigns. We have a number of tools that will help you stay informed and inform others as well. You can volunteer to translate or teach on some of our virtual learning opportunities. And, I will leave Melissa to talk about specifically about fundraising, but also consider becoming a member, sign up for our newsletter if you don't already receive it, and think about joining or starting a chapter in your community. I've just given a really very general overview. I'm very happy to dig further into any of this or answer questions in the question period. I want to leave a lot of space for my colleague Parwani to walk you through DDL. But do feel free to reach out either in Q&A or after the fact. And this is my email. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. I think we're gonna go over to Parwani now to take us through the DDL, but that was a great introduction.
Thank you, Paige. So let me go to my presentation first. Let's start from here. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to be part of this event, and thank you very much, Canadian University of Vaughan, for organizing this event. Before I do the demo of DDL, just a picture of the situation of girls and women in Afghanistan who, unfortunately, in the situation that lack of access to educational resources in educational institutions. After the fall of Afghanistan to the Taliban, around 10 million students and 220,000 teachers not only lost access to education resources, but found themselves behind the closed doors of education institutions. Many of vendors who owned book cafes, bookstores had no choice but sell their books for as little to nothing and shut their doors. Many of publishers also shut their businesses, and most of them left the country. One of them told me that he had no choice but leave the country because he was afraid to be executed by the Taliban for publishing so-called Islamic books and promoting culture values of Western culture values. So they just shut the publishing house, one of the very famous ones. The Ministry of Education website was shut down since Taliban became to power and has yet to be reopened. Basically, Afghans lost the access to educational resources. DDL, Darakht-e Danesh Library, remains the only source of textbooks, supplementary educational resources, sign exercises, class activities, curriculum, and many more. We are proud seeing more visitors on a daily basis and even seeing more authors publishing their books in DDL. This encourages our team to work more harder and provide more opportunities to Afghans to read and learn. And now a little bit about the Darakht-e Danesh Library. I think I have 15 minutes and I hope I can manage this. So what the Darakht-e Danesh Library? Darakht-e Danesh means knowledge tree, and Farsi Dari, one of the official language of Afghanistan. The Darakht-e Danesh Online Library is a repository of open educational resources for teachers, teacher trainers, school administrators, literacy workers, and others involved in furthering education in Afghanistan. These open source resources include lesson plans, pedagogical tools, exercises, experiments, reading text, workbooks, curricula, books on different topics, children's storybooks, and other resources for use in Afghan classrooms. And I have to mention that all those resources are in different types, like video clips, like textbooks, like audio clips, and many more that I will show you very shortly. And why is an online library needed? In introductory, I mentioned that very shortly, but at the time we started, it was 12, 14 hours during many of the programs that Sarah explained in Afghanistan. We realized that Afghan teacher has no access to supplementary resources for their capacity building. And even millions of students didn't have access to textbooks. So the idea of having an online library with digital resources for free, so came from that need at that time, and it went more in development ways, in different ways that we see now, DDL. And how it will be used? DDL resources can be freely accessed by registered users. And we also encourage users to add to the repository of uploading their own resources and expand this collection. The Darakht-e Danesh Library was the first and only organization who brought open educational resources to Afghanistan 12 years ago. We are officially part of open educational resource movement. And before the COVID, we attended the yearly meetings of open educational resource movement in different cities and countries. So very active in that part as well. So a little bit numbers. Right now, we have more than 6,000 learning materials in the library on 127 subjects. All those resources are in 9 languages that I'll show you very shortly. We have more than 600 story books for children. At the same time, more than 450 audiobooks produced in-house. So we produced all of them. And we have video lessons. We have YouTube channel, Darakht-e Danesh YouTube channel, with thousands of subscribers and hundreds of materials for students, teachers, or whoever wants to read and learn. And we have more than 170,000 annual users. That number is a little bit old. Right now, as I will show you, we have 60,000 visits per month. And now I wanted to go online and show the features of DDL if the technology allows me. So can you see my screen with the web?
Not yet, Parwani.
You have it now? I'm sorry.
Paige, can you assist him?
Yeah.
Oh, now there you go.
Okay, so this is our website. As you see, this is the homepage of it. So at the top of the right, you see the list of languages, which is English, Farsi, Pashto, Uzbeki, Munji, Nuristani, Sauji, Shirnani, Pashai. So Farsi and Pashto are two, as I mentioned before, two official Afghanistan languages. And there are the other languages, minority languages. So if we click on any of them, the website comes to that language. That means for those minority languages, we had a very kind of comprehensive job to translate the keywords of the website into those languages. So we basically created a literature for those minority languages. And if I click in English, so the website becomes an English language. And how it could be used. We have here windows, search windows. If you, for example, type anything you wanted to have it, it appears right here. And also we have the 3 categories that any resources you need could be searched very easily by that. On the left top, you see the list of these categories. For example, we can use the resource subject areas for searching resources. For example, if you click on applied science, all resources under this category will appear very easily. And you click on, for example, the timber will be shown on that. And resource types, for example, it's a long list, as you see, as articles, assessments, audio, visual, for example, books. It's all books are here. And also we have resource levels. It starts from preschool to very higher education. For example, if you click on primary 1 to 6 grades, it's all resources will be just categorized by that search. And at the same time, it does very automatically, for example, all 3 language. Any resources that comes under this level, it will be chosen also selecting by resource types and level as well. About the submission of resources, as I mentioned before, it's very, very easy way. Just there is a button to submit a resource. 3 steps. Just fill these ones, those steps, those boxes, and upload the resource you want it to be there. The only criteria that we have, it's a copyright issue. Just please, if you wanted to add any resource to the library, make sure that it's your own work or you have the permission of uploading them, or there is under Open Educational Resources Common Creative licensing. And as I mentioned, usage of DDL is free. The only requirement is that person should be registered. That's also free and very fast. So one of the last resources, as I mentioned, for example, we translated 300 children's story books from Storyviewer, and not only translated, but we hosting Storyviewer library platform and DDL. So this is available through DDL, and we are part of it. If we go here, for example, just search in different ways, and if you choose Farsi, their platform will be available in Farsi, and those books, as you see, are translated by DDL. So we made this opportunity for many readers around the world, inside Afghanistan and outside of Afghanistan. For example, this is for parents, this is for educators, and this is for students. So they can just have access to this platform, which has resources in more than 124 languages, any resource available on that platform. And also we have a glossary created by Darakht-e Danesh Library that we have all terms and science subjects in many other languages in English, Farsi, Pashto, translated. So we have thousands of words in our dictionary that helps Afghan students and teachers to easily find in local languages the meaning of the terms that they need to know. And how we connect to our users in different ways. We have very active in social media. We have a Facebook page, and we have a direct messaging system with them. And they, on daily basis, they contact us and ask for different resources, and they have different, very, very, especially after the recent crisis in Afghanistan, because they are lack of access to an educational resources and sources. So they ask us, for example, a user today at 10:53 asks for a chemistry textbook for grade 7. At 9:55, another one asks for exercises, the result of English subjects for grade 12. So we very patiently address all those needs. We prepare for them, even we solve the problems they ask, but with any subjects exercises. And we try to just be responsive, because we know that probably one of, if not the only one of the main digital, I think the only digital source for Afghans to just get them the access to educational resources. So it's quick. I hope I didn't kind of exceeded my time limit. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll be happy to answer questions if any there.
Thank you, Parwani. I think that was perfect timing, and we got to see so many aspects of the library. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And now I think Melissa is gonna tell us a bit about fundraising for the
Yes.
DDL.
Absolutely. Let me just, well, first of all, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for participating today. We are just so grateful for your partnership, and I'm hoping just to share a little bit of background about our partnership, some things that you've achieved, and then hopefully give you some tips and suggestions as you move forward with your fundraising or advocacy efforts for Afghan women and girls. So I will share my screen here. Okay, can everyone see my desktop? Okay. Okay, I'll just jump right in here. So thank you so much to the Canadian Federation of University Women. You've been a partner of ours for a very long time, and I would like to actually just jump right to my next slide to show you. Since the beginning of our partnership, I went through all of our books since we started to electronically bookkeep, and I've determined, based on our records, that you have raised more than $53,000 for us over the course of our partnership. And we are so incredibly grateful, not only for the years of partnership, but just the continuous support that you've provided to Afghan women and girls. When I was putting these numbers together and reflecting on them a bit, I just was thinking about the changes that we've seen in Afghanistan from 2005 until now, and the seasons that we've experienced together. And so the first, in 2005, I think it was a season of hope and possibility for women and girls in Afghanistan, where they were finally free of the Taliban regime and really looking towards a bright future. And it was an exciting time, I think, for our organization and for the work that collectively we were all doing together. And then, of course, as of August 15th, 2021, with the fall of Kabul, we've kind of entered a new season in our work, and a new season in Afghanistan again. And although it's a dark time, I think it's really inspiring to see how many people have come together and are showing through their actions and their support that we haven't forgotten the women and girls in Afghanistan, and we're here to support them. And if we need to be nimble and strategic and, change the nature of our programs as they currently exist in order to continue to meet their needs, then we will absolutely do that, and we won't back away. So thank you again for this amazing partnership. We are so grateful. All right. So far, just in 2022 alone, you have raised $6,500 for Canadian Women for Women in Afghanistan. And that is just absolutely incredible. And this is primarily through Breaking Bread dinners that I know that some of your clubs have been hosting, which is just, it's so impactful. And I wanted to share just some examples of the impact that amount makes, particularly for DDL. So let me see here. So this amount equates to the content creation for 24 online resources for our DDL library, which is amazing, or the translation of 38 online resources into all of the local Afghan languages that Parwani was mentioning. So this is critical work. And as you heard from Parwani, we get requests daily for new courses to be created and uploaded for the needs of people of Afghanistan. So the work is endless, and your support really does make a significant impact in our ability to meet those needs. So thank you so much. So how are donations invested? What do we do? So as an organization that operates in challenging territories, we are constantly assessing and reassessing not only the political climate in Afghanistan, but also neighboring countries, the safety of our Afghan staff who are running programs in Afghanistan, and the safety of the Afghan women, girls, and families that utilize our programs. So each year, as a group, we look at our programs to determine if they are safe to deliver in the method that they're currently being delivered. Are they still being impactful in the ways that we want them to be impactful? Or do we need to make some changes to really address the needs that we see currently? So we're in that process right now. And then once we've determined our goals and our focuses for the upcoming year, we create a program budget based on that. So we will have a budget for our DD library and all of our Tech for Ed programs. So once that budget is established, people who donate to us, either individual donors or foundations or government grants, they can restrict their donations or designate their gift to particular programs that align best with their values or their interests. And so we definitely take that into account, and those funds go directly to where they are requested to go. Any funding shortfalls that we have in our programs at the end of the year are covered by funds from our general fund if we have overages. And through our DD Academy, so the DD Academy is the digital library. We have a DD courses program and a DD classroom program as well. So all three of those programs are part of our technology for education initiative. And so if we have any overages in one area, we'll bounce funds around to make sure that all the programs are covered in order to be successful. So when you donate to the DDL, what do your donations support? What kind of things do we do with those funds? So these are some of the things that we do. So the content development of the online courses, editing of online courses, translation of resources into local languages. And I know Parwani does a lot of that work himself, and it's a lot, it's an art. Translation is an art, and it takes a lot of time and effort. So that, web development, API and mobile app development, new features and maintenance. So making sure that the library is accessible not only from a desktop, but also from mobile phones. Outreach and education, events and communications, web hosting, domain registration, software fees and subscriptions that we have to cover, deployment of hardware, kits, not kids, and equipment, program management, monitoring, and evaluation. So when you support the Darakht-e Danesh Library, these are the things that your donations support. Some fundraising ideas. So when it comes to raising funds and awareness, almost anything goes. We get a lot of requests from people with their own great fundraising ideas, and almost anything goes, truthfully. So breaking bread dinners, I know this is a very well established way to generate funds that CFUW has done for a long time. Now that we're not past the era of COVID, but starting to meet in person again, we're seeing an uptake of this fundraising strategy again. And one of our board members said, breaking bread dinners are not just for fundraising, it's for friend raising as well. So it's a great opportunity to get together in person. I think in-person opportunities to meet and to talk about situations like this are really powerful. So I would encourage you to keep doing that, especially if you're a club who has a very well-established program. If you're not a club that's ever done a breaking bread dinner, but you're interested, I would just encourage you to reach out to the other club members who have a great program and get some tips from them. And of course, we're here to support you as well. Sales of handmade goods. We have people who create beautiful pottery and they sell that and donate their proceeds to us. Knitwear, beautiful ornaments for Christmas, all sorts of things. You could be creative in your fundraising efforts. Activities as well. We have people who run marathons and donate funds that they generate to us. Readathons, so maybe a book reading challenge, walks or book drives. Here in Calgary, we have a nonprofit organization called Calgary Reads, and every year they do a book drive. And so if there's a similar organization where you are, perhaps consider organizing a book drive and say, for every book that we that's brought in, CFUW will donate $5 or whatever to Canadian Women for Women, so that Afghan women and girls can access educational resources online. Events, we've seen movie screenings, people doing movie screenings, cooking classes, different workshops or concerts. Some of these things are small fundraising activities, some are very large and time consuming. So honestly, anything goes. And then lastly, I would actually suggest supporting our advocacy work. We know that generating awareness often leads to generating funds as well. So I think particularly now when we're seeing a lot of humanitarian crisis in the world with Ukraine and Afghanistan, I think it's very important that we continue to elevate the voices of women and girls in Afghanistan, some who feel like the world has forgotten them. So if you're able to participate in our advocacy work, we are always really happy to have that as well. And Sarah will be the person that you could connect to for those opportunities. If you have any other ideas of things that I didn't mention, or you're wondering if it's an okay thing to do, just contact us. My email's here at the bottom and Sarah's is there as well. And I'll try and wrap up some fundraising resources that we have to support you in your efforts. This year, we're working on an impact database. So this is going to be a repository that we use for to collect stories, impact stories from people who have benefited from our programs, statistics about the impact of the programs, photos with permission of people who have used our programs. So you can absolutely utilize those things to help with your fundraising efforts. We're also going to be developing a speakers bureau. So a list of speakers who can either speak to our work or people who have a personal story that they are comfortable sharing that you could utilize in maybe a Breaking Bread event or any other event that you might have. Of course, communication support from Canadian Women's staff. We are very well versed in talking about what's going on in Afghanistan and our programs. So if you want help drafting any communications from us, we are always happy to do that. As I mentioned, the revitalization of in-person Breaking Bread dinners, that will be, I think we'll be seeing a lot of that coming in the next year or so, people being more comfortable getting together. Personalized campaigns through Keeler, which is our database. We can create a specific campaign just for your event. It has its own separate link that you can share around. We can include any content that you'd like us to include or photos and generate funds through that. And the best thing is that there's automatic tax receipts. So we can do that all right away. So it's very user-friendly and easy. So if that's something that you think you would like to do, please reach out to me and I'm happy to set that up for you. And we're also developing a What Your Donation Buys guide. So these are little examples of if you donate $15, what does that do? Or if you donate $150, what does that do? So giving examples, like $15 donation provides 1 month of internet access to an Afghan student looking to learn or access the DDL. So things like that. So we're putting that together as well. And we're happy to share those little infographics or things that will help fundraising be easier. Again, I just want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts on behalf of all of Canadian Women for Women in Afghanistan, and particularly from the Afghan women and girls that our program support. Now it's a critical time, and we are just so grateful that you've invited us to speak about our work, and that you have been supporting our work for more than 17 years. You are very valued partners to us, and we are just so incredibly grateful. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa. Great to hear some of those statistics. I know some of us were wondering about the fundraising, but to know that it's 53,000 over many years is great to know. Yeah, so thank you all. We have quite a few questions coming in, and I'm glad that we left some time to take questions. I'll just start out. There's been a few questions about the internet, and I was actually at another meeting earlier. Some other folks were in it talking about Afghanistan as well, and we heard that there's electricity issues right now. So how do people who want to use DDL access the internet? Is it monitored? Are they in any danger accessing the resources? How does that all work?
I can take this one, Paige. So thus far, the online realm is not something that the Taliban has really limited. So censorship is not really an issue. There's not a significant risk to people accessing these resources. The issue, as you already mentioned, is one of infrastructure. So particularly in more rural areas, there are, power supply is not reliable, much less internet connectivity. So this is one of the reasons why some of our broader work around tech for education has been focused on providing grants to small initiatives. So there, I'm sure that many of you will know that in the year, in the 14 months since the Taliban takeover, we've seen like an incredible resilience and ingenuity of the Afghan people, and in particular women and girls who aren't going to give up their human right to education easily, and just a flourishing of kind of secret schools and online initiatives. And so one of the things that we do, in addition to providing the resources that are available in DDL, is to ensure that people do have that connectivity as well. So we have a small grants program that we've launched in the past year that gives internet bundles to these initiatives. We also have a version of DDL, which can be loaded onto devices and is available to access without an internet connection. So that when we can get those devices into the hands of women and girls, they can continue to access all of those resources even without a reliable internet connection. So there are various ways that we're working on to ensure that that the service is equitable and that those who need it most are able to access it.
That's good to know. Yeah, that accessibility is so important. And then I believe, Sarah, you mentioned this in the beginning. Joy was wondering if you could tell us more about the opportunity for teaching. CFUW has many educators in their membership who might be interested in volunteering in this role.
Yeah, so as Melissa mentioned very briefly, our Tech for Education program has grown rapidly in the past year as a consequence of the changing situation, the crisis, and the increased need, because there are just literally millions of girls who are barred from attending school, as well as people who are just displaced or in hiding. So these online learning opportunities are really vital for people across the board. And so we've expanded our Darakht-e Danesh, what started out as this library of resources that Parwani shared, to what we're calling our DD Academy now, which includes the courses, which are asynchronous online courses that people can access in their own time frame. And some of those have been done in partnership with Canadian higher education institutions, and they provide accreditation to people, as well as a pilot that we've recently launched for synchronous live online classes for girls in grade 7. So the first year of schooling where they are not able to access. So girls over the age of 13. Yeah, and so we have expanded that. And so I think there are opportunities within both the DD courses and the live synchronous learning for educators with particular subject backgrounds to volunteer their time. And you can reach out to either myself or Melissa if there's an interest in that, to register your interest, and we will make sure that that is passed on to our program colleagues who are responsible for overseeing and coordinating that.
That's great. Thank you. We have another question. We have a question about language. So Helen is asking, how many Afghan people speak Hindi? I saw some Hindi language script during Parwani's excellent presentation.
Hindi, we had a minority group of Sikhs living in Afghanistan, Afghan Sikhs. Unfortunately, due to the recent situation, they left Afghanistan, they evacuated to India, and some of them came to Canada. But Hindi is not one of the languages of Afghanistan.
Okay, yeah. Did you want to elaborate?
Yeah, because Hindi is a language of India. We are bordering with Pakistan. I guess 25 kilometers with India, somewhere China, India, and then to Central Asia in Iran. So people in the south of Afghanistan probably speak Urdu a bit because of the relationship between Pakistan and also Indian movies have a lot of kind of people like them in Afghanistan, so they kind of learn that. But it's a kind of counts as general knowledge. It doesn't count as a language, one of the languages of Afghanistan.
And I guess, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, and I know the purpose of asking the question. Could elaborate on this more, Eleanor?
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to learn more about all the different languages that are on the DDL.
Yeah, the Afghanistan is a multi-ethnical, multilingual country. Unfortunately, was not done a lot of work on developing those languages. Some of them even didn't have even alphabet. So when I talked that we created a website for those languages, and I quickly mentioned that it's a huge work to create a computer language for those languages even don't have the alphabets. So it's a really huge job, and then translate those resources from, for example, English or official languages into those languages. It's also requires a lot of efforts and kind of finding specialists and expertise on those languages. For example, Saudi language that we have, it's one of the languages that remains only 25,000 or so that living in south part of Afghanistan, and around 65,000 in Pakistan. If we don't pay attention to that language, it will be gone. And if you do the research during the last probably 40 years, 2 of languages of Afghanistan has died because the last people who were speaking into that language and they died, and those languages gone with them as well. So that's why with some other organization I know working in this area, DDL also has a very, very big part of it to just keep alive those languages. So that's why we had a celebration every year, one day as a day of translation. And we had officially used to ask government of Afghanistan to add this day to Afghan calendar, national calendar, and recognize it as an official day. And not only translating and putting them, make them digitalize those languages, we also had any other efforts as well to keep those languages alive.
Wow, Yeah, that's amazing work done.
Yeah.
That's-
That's very similar to what has happened to some of the languages of our First Nations. They have disappeared, and the world is much poorer for the loss of every language that when that happens. Farsi is the predominant, is it?
A Farsi language, as we refer to it, it's a language which calls officially in Afghanistan Dari, in Tajikistan called Tajiki, and Iran it's called Farsi.
Okay.
So it's the same language, same alphabet, same writing, but the pronunciation could be, not could be, it's a little bit different in 3 different countries, but it's the same language.
Okay.
Okay. I realize we have a lot of other questions that have come up. So from Anne, if there's no Ministry of Education in Afghanistan, is DDL possibly the only resource in that country for any school, including schools for boys and for mixed schools?
May I? I didn't say that there is no Ministry of Education. There is Ministry of Education, but it's a Taliban Ministry of Education, unfortunately. So I said the Taliban shut down the website of Ministry of Education that contained digital versions of textbooks and some teacher guides and some activities lists. So due to very low salary of Afghan teachers in Afghanistan, even that time, so now most of them, they don't have even. So one teacher was paid before the recent crisis around $120 per month. So if you add the rent, the groceries and everything, they didn't have even money to just purchase if the books are just supplementary materials. They wanted to do that. That was one of the purpose of Darakht-e Danesh came out the idea, and we wanted to help them. But they had still access to that ministry's website, but it's shut down now, and there is no way. The only source, it's Darakht-e Danesh Online Library. There is no mixed schools in Afghanistan anymore. We had before that crisis, not right now. So girls after 6th grade cannot go. They are abandoned to go to schools. They are at home. And we are trying, as Melissa and Sarah mentioned. Now we have online course classes for grade 7, which by the end of this term, they will go to grade 8. So we will be having grade 8 as well and grade 7 new enrollments. And also we have online courses. So we do as much as we can. But the ministry, it's totally different story, no relationships, unfortunately, and we cannot have because totally different policy and point of views to education by itself. They are working on curriculum to change it. They removed many subjects from the curriculum already, not only in the schools, but the higher education as well. So they will introduce probably soon the new curriculum based on, as they call it, Islamic values.
Yeah, so I would just add to what Parwani has already shared from the point of view of the kind of policy context or activism, that as he said, there's no operating Ministry of Education. It's in the hands of the Taliban. There is real concern even in schools that are operating, where boys are in school, even at the primary age. They're certainly subject to increasing extremism, that's a core part of any curriculum such as it exists now. They're subject to a lot of violence in schools. So by no means, are girls and women the only victims even in the education crisis in Afghanistan. Even boys are, ostensibly given access to schooling, but what kind of schooling is it? And so, in a context like this, providing educational resources really becomes and as I said, we're seeing this from the grassroots within Afghanistan as well. It's really an act of resistance as well as as much as it is about, continuing with education. It's a means of resistance.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that information. We're always learning more about the situation. And then Helen has a question about Melissa, I think you mentioned a history between our two organizations for a long time, and just wanted to know a bit more about that, if you could speak to that. I'm also new to CFUW, so I'm actually not even too sure about the history.
And you know what, I just started in June, so I will try to answer your question, but I might need to follow up with you. But what I know about some of our very long-standing partners, so our organization was originally created by two women who really felt like this was an area of passion, and I think it really started, our supporters really started from the friends of the two women that began our organization, and it really has blossomed from there. And I've realized in my short time working here that most of our longstanding partners are educators, or people who really, that's the mandate, that's the passion that you have, that our organizations just very much align in what we do. So I would imagine, I don't know who the first supporter was from CFUW or how exactly that came about, but I can certainly find out and let you know, because it's definitely one of our, if not our most longstanding partners that we have. And so yeah, the work that we've done together has been really, really impactful. So let me look into that, and I can follow up with you with some more details.
I can say that I also haven't been with the organization for years and years, 2.5 years in my case. But in terms of the history of Canadian Women for Women in Afghanistan, the development of the organization was very grassroots. It was fed by Canadian feminists who wanted to stand in solidarity with the women of Afghanistan and the human rights abuses they were experiencing at the time of the previous Taliban regime. And it started in a very general kind of way. There wasn't this specific focus on education. They supported local partners inside Afghanistan in areas of like healthcare and job creation and education. And over the years, we very intentionally shifted to a specific focus on education for a couple of reasons. The first and the most important one being that Afghan women and entire communities themselves were telling us this is our path towards like true liberation. And actually education, like if you speak to Afghans, there's often this idea, I think in mainstream media or in some of our dominant narratives, that education is like, it's been sort of a Western imposition, but education for all is a deeply held cultural value in Afghanistan. I've learned in the time I've worked here, to a really admirable extent. People will go to great lengths to ensure education for all their children, boys and girls. And so we heard that call from the people of Afghanistan themselves, and also just the evidence base, which supports education as a driver for every other kind of, every other sustainable development goal. When you equip girls and women with education, you increase their climate resilience, you increase their mortality rates and their income levels. So it really is, you get, you generate a lot of results. The impact is huge with this one focus.
Yeah, that's so true. Definitely empowering women has such a ripple effect. I think we're running out of time. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of the questions, but I just want to hand it over to Barb to close us off.
There, I finally managed to unmute myself, first of all. It's just incredible. I want to thank all of you for a very impactful discussion. I have far more awareness of our own fundraising for you and the value and need that is ever apparent. Melissa, I'm wondering, can you just bring up your donation page? Because I know that I had a question, and I think others have had as well. We're encouraging our CFUW members, if it's a club that's donating, to send the money to our national office so that we can track it. But I know that you have on your website this donate ability to donate. However, when I went at your drop-down list, I wasn't sure quite which one was specifically targeting the library. So if you could go through that, I think it might be helpful for us.
Sure. Here, let me just pull up again. So probably what you're seeing, just while I'm pulling or getting our website loaded, probably what you see in the drop-down menu, it's referred to as technology for education. And so that is the term that it's sort of the umbrella term for the DD library, our DD courses, and our DD classroom. Now, if you wanted to specifically go to, let me share my screen. Share. If you were wanting your donations to specifically go to the library in particular, let's see. I don't know if you can specify in the drop-down menu as it currently stands, or if you can. You know what you could do? I can always, so if you went to technology for education and you made your donation this way, it would go to all 3 programs. Now, what I can easily do is add the DD library specifically as a drop-down item. So I can just go through even this afternoon and add that. So if you wanted to specifically just support the library, that would be an option in this drop-down menu here. But for now, if you have anyone making a donation right at this moment, that technology for education, you could also in this dedication box say, I would like to specifically support the DD library or DDL, and we'll make sure that when that gets processed, we put that right to our library budget and not to the other 2 programs. So,
and is this where we would indicate that we are making a donation and we are a CFUW member?
Yes. So if you go, let me just say technology for education, and you go donate. Oh, I'd like to keep my one-time gift. And you put your payment information here. You can say, if you wanted, I'm donating as a company, even though you're not a company, but you're an organization, you could put CFUW in there, and that will flag it for us so that when we're organizing all your donations, we know exactly which ones belong to CFUW, and we can report back to you in that way. Because sometimes we find it tricky if you go in as an individual, but you forget to mention that you're from CFUW, we might miss that donation. And so when I'm reporting back to you, we might have missed a couple donations that you've made.
Yes. One other question that I had with regards to that, if they select donate as a company, does it affect their tax receipt?
No, it won't.
Okay. I think those are the questions that I had been asked about. So I want to say once again how thankful we are to have had this meeting with you. For those of you that came on a little bit later, prior to the actual start, we were having a discussion, and I mentioned that education is at the bedrock of our organization of CFUW. It's what we were formed to do. It was to promote the rights, and particularly educational rights, of women and girls. And so for us, this is a perfect match. And what more can I say? Thank you very much for taking your time today to come and to clarify the need and also the various different resources. I'm blown away. We did have members who said, we'd like to donate materials, and you've actually covered most of those questions that we had. And I suspect that if we have any further ones, they'll be in contact and emailing you. So thank you very much. We really do appreciate working with you.
Thank you so much for creating this opportunity for us. And please do reach out with any questions, or if you want to bounce ideas for fundraising off us, we're always at your disposal.
Thank you very much.
May I please?
Parwani? Yeah, no, go ahead.
Sorry. So yeah, at the end, I just wanted to thank you for all your support, not as a DDL content manager and editor, but as an Afghan Canadian, for supporting Afghan people, Afghan women and girls who are, by supporting them, you are giving a sense of not being lost, not remembered by the world. that they have that since now. So if in other underdeveloped countries, people are fighting for quality in education, for inclusion in education. But in Afghanistan, our children are fighting for right of education. And you are supporting this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, panelists, attendees. Thank you. All right, take care.
Thanks, everyone.